Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, HS Today community. The end of this month, July 28th, 2024, will mark 1 year since Congress failed to reauthorize the Chemical Facilities Anti-Terrorism Standards, or CFATS program. And today we're sitting down with Kelly Murray, who is the Associate Director for Chemical Security at CISA. As the Associate Director, Ms. Murray oversees the agency's efforts to administer the currently lapsed CFATS regulation. And we wanted to take some time today to talk about this important program. Many of you know me, Christina Tanaschuk, the Executive Editor of Homeland Security Today. And if you don't know me, I encourage you to get to know Homeland Security Today. We have a vertical covering everything in Homeland and particularly critical infrastructure. And that's really what the CFATS program is about and what we're going to be talking with Kelly today. So for those of you unfamiliar or perhaps not directly connected to chemical security, but I think if you live in a city, you're directly impacted by chemical security. Kelly, can you talk to us a little bit about why this CFATS program was even started?
Absolutely. And first, thank you for welcoming me, Christina. This is an incredibly important topic, and we are very excited to bring your viewers into the loop. So for folks that are not as familiar, and as you said, if you live in a city, a town, a commonwealth, a suburb, any of the above, you are impacted by chemical security. So CFATS, in kind of layman's terms, at the very basic level, CFATS targets to look at the facilities that possess chemicals across the nation and see which of those facilities are at most risk of a chemical terrorism attack. We then look at those facilities and say, if you are high risk, we must enhance your security. And so we work with those facility owners and operators and help them to add the security that prevents this sort of an attack from happening. So CFATS was originally stood up shortly after DHS was stood up. And it's really the same mantra, the same idea, right? After 9/11, everyone in the nation realized there's a risk out there, there's a threat out there that we need to address, and DHS was established. The same thing happened with CFATS. We saw the chemical terrorism risk, the chemical terrorism threat, and we said we need a program that can help to address this. And that's really why CFATS was stood up about 17 years ago, to make sure that these facilities are secure. And I want to kind of correct something, a misnomer that may be out there of what a chemical facility is. Chemical facilities are everywhere and anywhere in the world. Chemicals are used to manufacture 96% of the goods and services that are out in the nation today, right? So you're talking about the ink in your pen used chemicals to manufacture it. The chip in your phone, we used chemicals to bleach the wood on my desk. These chemicals are literally everywhere. And so we want to make sure that we are covering all of those populations. And so through CFATS, we actually gathered chemical inventory information from over 40,000 facilities across the country. So again, in every neighborhood, in every backyard, 40,000 facilities. And then CFATS regulated the highest risk, which was about 3,200 facilities. And ensuring the security of those facilities is critical because the threat was real when CFATS was stood up. The chemical threat is real today. So that's a little bit on where we started with CFATS.
Well, and unfortunately, you're working with one of those things where it doesn't matter until it matters. And this program didn't come about because there is no chatter or there are no incidents or this isn't an issue. It came about because it was truly necessary. And so it seems like a no-brainer, but it seems like there's an extraordinary amount of bipartisan support. Law was passed, bipartisan support, and yet what's happening? It's been turned into kind of a political, I don't know, toy. I don't know. Chemical facilities as toys. I don't really get that. But what has happened, and is the support for it waning?
Not a toy I would want to play with, Christina. But no, the support for it is not waning. The House passed a bill last July, 409 to 1. I don't know when that happens. That just doesn't happen, right? So we know there was bipartisan support in the House. We know there's bipartisan support for the bill, the reauthorization of the program in the Senate. We've heard from industry that more than 10,000 letters have been sent from the industry themselves. Industry is fighting for the regulation. That just doesn't happen, right? And one of the things that I love that industry says all the time is this is a big problem. The threat is real, and they shouldn't have to go it alone. And so the government is a partner in this case. And we know that their support is there. We've heard from many different associations, whether they be in law enforcement, industry, and others, that all support the program. They know the benefits of the program. They saw the benefits of the program, and everyone wants this program back. And so we are hopeful that it will come back as we approach the 1 year mark. I continue to say it's not if it will come back, it's when it will come back. But the longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be to restart, and the more risk is on the table. And as you said, we don't want something to happen that drives the need for it. We want to get ahead of this. That's what Homeland Security is all about, is seeing the threat and addressing the threat before it hits the homeland.
Well, and it's really about preventing the threat, altogether. And so you don't want people scrambling to try and put the pieces of a program back together when we're responding to a chemical incident. So it's really unfortunate that we have to, for some reason, be fighting for this. So in the meantime, can you talk to us about what a world without CFATS means for like law enforcement and first responders and others?
Yes. So one of the great benefits of the CFATS program was that we did get all of this information from our industry partners, and we were able to see the chemical inventories at these locations, know where they were. We know that at the time of the lapse in authorization, we had about 3,200 high-risk facilities. We knew where they were, we knew what chemicals they had, and we knew what threats those posed. We also know that those facilities were positioned such that about 89 million Americans live within 2 miles of those facilities. I'm going to bet that those 89 million Americans want the law enforcement partners, the first responders, to know about these threats, that risk that is out there, so that they are prepared to respond. And they understand that when that specific facility calls them, that they pick up the phone and they respond immediately, that is a priority facility for them. And so we worked through the CFATS program to share that information with our first responders, with our law enforcement, with our state and local communities. And now that information is a year old. I don't know where these facilities are any longer. We have the previous data, but we know new facilities came on board all the time. On average, we used to see 40 new facilities submitting their inventories to us per month. That means 400, 500 new facilities likely have chemicals. We don't have that information. So the local law enforcement and first responders don't have that information either. So a world without CFATS just reduces our preparedness. And that is concerning. That is one of the aspects and why we were put in place. One of the other great aspects that we used to do is actually bring the industry and the federal and the local law enforcement together. That was actually a part of our inspections process to make sure they met each other. We constantly say the first time you're seeing someone shouldn't be in the moment of an emergency, that you should have that relationship. And that was another part of CFATS that we executed that we're no longer authorized to do.
It just seems appalling, frankly. And you're right, the emergency management creed of, you don't want to be exchanging business cards at the scene. This program was exceptional at bringing those people together and making sure really that law enforcement can help prevent an attack, but also that they're even aware of what kinds of things they need to be prepared to respond to. So a true travesty that we're hanging out there and letting our communities hang out there. So what are you saying to the general public? I mean, what's the current landscape, and how do you suggest they prepare, or what do they need to know?
So for the general public, I would say, be aware of what's going on. understand that CFATS was meant to protect, and that we as an agency are doing everything that we can in the lapse of CFATS. CISA still has a chemical security program, and we are still putting out materials and trying to do our very best to share our knowledge, our expertise on chemical security, help these facilities on a voluntary basis to raise their security. But these facilities really are, in backyards, and they need to be, right? Chemicals are vital to our economy. We need these there. We just need them safely. And so what I would just say to, the general public is to be aware of the threat landscape. See something, say something. That's a strong phrase for a reason. We've looked at all the annual threat assessments, and unfortunately, the threat is high right now across the board. We're living in a world right now that has international conflict, that has widespread impacts. We're living in a world with severe weather that is changing the way we do business, and we can't always even prepare as the weather is getting more significant and more unpredictable. And we're seeing increased threats. We're seeing, for folks that have been watching the news recently, we're seeing increased threats and more chatter being done. And we need to protect these facilities, and we need to protect our communities.
Absolutely. And so I know that you are not just sitting on your laurels. What are you doing with facilities? What are facilities supposed to be doing? And then what is CISA doing? Because I know that you all have been doing some tremendous work to help, despite the fact that the program hasn't been reauthorized.
Yep, no, CISA has amazing resources. For anyone on here that hasn't heard of CISA, please reach out. We have amazing resources. So we not only have a chemical security program, but we have cybersecurity divisions and infrastructure security divisions. So we are offering these chemical facilities assessments, exercises, training, guidance, awareness, information sharing, and pushing out these materials to these facilities, pushing them out to our local first responders as well, and working with our communities to make sure that they still have all the best practices and know what we should be doing. Unfortunately, we can't require it anymore, right? That's the bridge right there. Is CFATS require these high-risk facilities to implement these measures. Rather, instead, now we're encouraging. And CISA's putting out amazing information specific to chemical facilities, but much broader than that. The cybersecurity vulnerabilities that we are making folks aware of to check in on, they're really putting out a ton of resources. But it's then on the facility to implement that. And that's the piece that we're really, really missing here, is that CFATS forced the requirement. CFATS required these facilities to make those changes. Our other programs, our voluntary chemicals program, which is called ChemLock, so check it out, everyone. It can't require that. It can offer it. It can't require it. The other piece of the puzzle here that ChemLock can't do and CISA can't do as an agency is terrorist vetting. This was a huge part of the CFATS program, where we would actually vet for facilities, because only the government can, individuals that had access to these chemicals against the terrorist screening database. And at the time of the lapse, we had vetted about 500,000 people across the country. We know that more than 10 positive matches resulted from that vetting, and we had to cancel all vetting at the moment we lost the CFATS authority. And that is something we cannot do on a voluntary basis, and the industry cannot do for themselves.
So not having the reauthorization has completely crippled your information sharing around it. And it has also stopped the vetting of terrorists who have access to chemicals.
Yeah, we can do information sharing with what we have, but under CFATS, facilities were actually required to report their incidents to us.
Right.
And do analysis on that. We could coordinate, we could see trends and common themes, and then we could share that information. We can't share that information, just like we can't share where these facilities are located anymore, since our data is no longer accurate.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely crippling the information sharing. It's absolutely true that that flow comes from you, and that the analysis is so important. So, oh gosh, well, we support your fight to get this program reauthorized. We hope that the country will take precedent over politics. And anything we can do to share the messages, you just let us know. We really appreciate your time today, and certainly your passion for protecting our communities and making sure that an incredible chemical attack does not happen, because they are devastating and they are very, very difficult to detect until it's way, way too late. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, CISA team, for everything you do to keep us protected and well resourced.
Thank you, Christina.